Hello, friends. Today is Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. How are you doing today? How are you doing on this second day of the fall season, of the middle of a week, which may include some work or volunteering or helping your kiddos to navigate their schooling, whether in person or online? How are you doing? Today I found myself watching this morning as the casket of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was brought to the Supreme Court building and brought up the steps into a space where her colleagues and spouses gathered, and just a very few others. Lining the steps, if you look at my Facebook page, I captured this image. There were over 100 of her clerks that had worked with her through the years who stood silently as they brought the casket up the steps. It was pretty powerful. And in that time this morning, it wasn't a long service. There was going to be a private service after what was televised. But I wanted to share, she had two speakers. One was a rabbi, Rabbi Loren Holtzblatt, who said this in talking about Justice Ginsburg, and as we think about our lives and how we can be an influence or a presence of the holy or of goodness in the world. She said, "It is a rare prophet who not only imagines a new world, but makes that new world a reality in her lifetime." And then she said, "The Torah, which is the first 5 books of our Bible, the Torah is relentless in commanding that we never forget those who live on the shadows." The Torah, or the scriptures, are relentless in commanding, not just suggesting, not just listing. The Torah is relentless in commanding that we never forget those who live in the shadows. That has stuck with me in my reflections today, and may those words be a gift and an itch of thinking about how we're doing and what is going on around us and within us, and how we are relating to those in our midst. So going from that to a time to visit with a couple today who is joining the church, and it's kind of funny in this online worship COVID season. So we're recording all these little pieces, and then I'll edit them together so that on Sunday morning people will be able to see. We've got folks joining the church this weekend, and it was just kind of a funny technological piece. But in the midst of that, having some real time to just check in and get to know each other better and share a bit of our lives. And as I left their place an hour and a half later, I thought, this is the stuff. This is the rich stuff. Is us just pausing to get to know each other, to tell a little bit of our story, and to imagine what we might be called to in the coming days. So, how are you? Where are you? How are you doing and feeling on this day? I found a reading I'd like to share. I'm returning, for those who might have seen a little bit this spring, to my little green book, A Guide to Prayer for All Who Seek God, one of my 2 or 3 guide to prayer books that I referenced sometimes. And this week would have been last week, actually, the rhythm of the book. But I found after reading yesterday the Deuteronomy text and thinking about our call, this kind of follows up on that, and maybe I just needed to hear it a little bit more. So this is from Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, chapter 58. And again, the prophets are those, they're not, it's not just seeing the future, it's not just saying, well, I look in the crystal ball and this is what's going to happen in 3 weeks or in 4 years or in 20 years or whatever, but it's, if you continue doing what you're doing, this will be the outcome. If you continue to disregard God's care of the earth, of those who are vulnerable, and of your social responsibilities for each other, you will reap the consequences of that. And as the biblical communities and nations lived through that, so we do as well. So hear these words from Isaiah 58, verses 10 and 11. The prophet says, "If you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord, Yahweh, will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose waters never fail." I read that today and I just felt, oh, I would love to feel like a watered garden, that if that something I was doing could bring about healing and goodness and connection with people. You know, we don't always know or feel that we're actually getting anything good done in the world around us. So I thought that was a great challenge. So that's Isaiah 58, verses 10 through 11. And the title for this week's reflections in this little book is Making Room for God. And I was struck by that, as I, as well as you may, see a lot of things around adjusting our lives, and what are you doing to care for yourself, to how are you working with your family life, your home life, your work life in this COVID season? How are you tending to your kids? Are you helping them to get the best out of what they can? And oh yes, and your sick relatives or your beloved family members who are in care centers. How are we doing? How are we connecting? And then the sense of, are we making room for God? And I thought, oh gosh, really? One more to-do thing? But I found this reflection by Reuben Job to be pretty helpful, maybe just because it was good for me to hear. So here's a few words to think about. How can I make room in my life for the things that really matter? So whatever those things might be for you, the things that pop to your mind, or if you were to sit down with a piece of paper to think about the things that really matter in your life. How can I make room in my life for the things that really matter? This question plagues most adults in the developed world. We have so many things, so many activities, so many opportunities, so many responsibilities. And in this COVID season, we have things that 6 months ago we didn't have on top of it. Is it possible to find a place for God, or I would say for the holy, or for just having a deep silence or a break where you can bring your body, mind, and spirit together? Is there space to do that in our busy lives? Many have answered the question with a resounding no. Others have answered by filling every moment of every day with activity until there's no time even to think about God or the holy or the deeper things in life or what's coming next. Others yearn to find that sacred space and time, but don't know how or when to look. The saints who have gone before us left us a legacy of experience in living with God, and one learning they pass on to us is the value of fasting as a spiritual discipline. Now just hold on. It's okay. This is a theme that often comes up in Lent, and so maybe it was just me that needed to hear this again, that it came up today in September. Fasting makes room for God in our lives. The discipline required to relinquish something, whether it, in some cases, it may be a literal fasting of food or something like that, or it could be something else, entertainment, a behavior, a sense of hurriedness, a sense of impatience, a quick to anger. What are some of those things that we might, if we sat down and thought about it, might see a value of fasting from? That those can be an opening that admits God more fully into our lives. That if I acknowledge and name and perhaps intentionally fast from whatever it is, that might crack open space for God to enter, or for a sense of fullness, or for a sense of you're tending to yourself as best you can. A sense of silence, a sense of caring for yourself and for others, and that you will make it through this day. What is it that we might fast from in our lives? Is there a way for us, for me, for you, to find a blink of time, of space, where the TV's not on, where the music's not playing, the podcast? I've gotten into podcasts, so to set the podcasts aside, to fast or give up some things. So the real question becomes, what do you feel called to give up in order to find room for God, the holy, a sense of care, a sense of opening yourself that you might be able to receive something new, something good, something encouraging in your life? Fasting for a season may give you the space, time, and energy to make room for those things in your busy life. So again, that was maybe just something I needed to hear and be reminded of. That's one of the reasons I do love Lent, is that it is a time in the year of the Christian year around the world where we are asked to think deeply about these things. But they don't go away after Easter. So it was good for me to be reminded of that. Other themes today. Something else I ran across today for us to think on in this COVID season, in the practices. I was watching some of the congressional sharing from CDC and Dr. Fauci and FDA, and then I left, and there was apparently more conversation with some of the senators that got a little testy, but listening to the science, listening to the scientists, and recognizing that in this 6 months, this is a brand new disease. People are learning new things, and they'll discover something and say, you know what, we thought this, but now we've got more data, and so here's our up-to-date thing, and trying to make the best practices that we can. And I have to confess, I don't get the anti-mask thing. I just, in thinking about things that people have gone through in their lives and in our world that have been horrifically hard, this is not something that's horrifically hard, and yet it could not only save my life, it could save someone else's life. So I don't know. But here was a little question answer that somebody had Somebody says, okay, I have a question. How did the movie Groundhog Day, do you remember that movie with Bill Murray, where he keeps living the same day over and over and over again, and finally, when he's learned what he needs to learn, he breaks out of it and is able to move on? How did the movie Groundhog Day finally shift to the next day for Bill Murray? Have we tried that yet? And somebody in response says, he breaks the cycle when he shifts his focus from himself to devoting himself to helping others. And yes, that's exactly how we get out of this, all of us. So again, a little challenge maybe for me and for us as we consider that life and our Christian, if you're, my toolbox of faith is the Christian faith, and that says that we are not about, it's not a me and Jesus, it's not a individual, it's a communal, global concern for God's children and God's creation. And what am I doing to help bring some healing and some wholeness in my little corner of the world today? Oh, then as I got home and saw some of the heart-wrenching initial responses from the Breonna Taylor, and I have to confess that one of my fasting, or one of my disciplines that I need to do, is to remind myself to, it's okay to watch and listen, but I need to wait, and I need to listen, and I need to listen, and I need to listen. And so I invite us to do that this night and in the coming days. There will be protests. There will be people clamoring for justice that they feel like was not named. And there are lives still being lost. So I lift my prayers for so many who just feel that they're slipped through the cracks of our sense of caring for one another in the wholeness of our humanity. So with that, I would just close. It's times like this I wish I had a magic wand, and I don't. I just pray that I can open my heart and my ears to listen, to act justly, to love mightily, and to know that we are imperfect beings, called one step at a time, one day at a time, to emulate one who came and emptied himself fully of his life, that we might fill our lives with wholeness. So I invite you to take a breath. I do that a lot because I need to do it. And this little prayer chorus just came to my mind today. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your Spirit to this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your Spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. And so, beloved, may we go from this place. Consider how you might empty a part of yourself that you might be able to receive fullness and goodness that you may tend to yourselves gently, that you may spread a bit of love in the world, in your little corner, whatever it is that you're doing, and that we might open our hearts, our minds, and for some of us, our bodies, those who will be on the streets, raising their voices in anguish, in protest. I pray that lives may be safe. I pray that justice may come. And I pray that we all may reach out and look around at each other a little deeper. And who knows, someday we might just get out of this Groundhog Day ourselves. Grace and peace, beloved. Breathe deep. You are loved deeper than you know, and you are empowered to go forth and change the world. Amen.